So where are we at now with CTV? Has it been paused? Is there other discussions?
Well, the activation discussion went away.
Yeah.
And I think there's a bit more awareness of things that came before, things that are in flight. So they've really, I think people realize that. Yeah, I mean, I think the way forward is more cooperative comparison, just work between the different designs.
Right. So, I mean, is Jeremy talking to Rusty? Are they comparing ideas?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think Jeremy has kind of spun out and made new discussion channels, which there are no developers in, or, maybe application developers, but no protocol developers, or almost no protocol developers. So that's kind of led to a little echo chamber.
So he needs to engage with protocol developers.
Well, he tried, but that he ran into the problem that everybody runs into is a mutual problem, right? That there are fewer reviewers. So I think, if more proposals get together and they discuss amongst themselves, I'm sure Jeremy will join in, and that will be a way forward.
Is there any amount of, not intentional or not by, malicious intent, but a certain amount of gatekeeping that perhaps exists around yourself, Peter Willey, Andrew Polstra, Gregory Maxwell, Matt Craig, like established, people within the community who built that reputation, whereby if you can't get some kind of agreement from you guys that things are slower, and maybe that's a good thing, or maybe that's a bad thing, what happens after you guys?
Well, I mean, I think that, everybody's new once.
Yeah.
I popped up in 2013 promotional signatures, and now we have them. And I was certainly not forceful, right? And there are many new people involved in protocol design, implementation that were not here, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 1 year ago. And, for example, Lightning, which is a pretty big thing, there were two versions of that proposed in parallel. One was duplex micropayment channels by Christian Decker. Another one was the Lightning proposal by Poon and Dreiger. And no offense to those guys, but nobody had heard of them before. And, it was a really ingenious idea, co-invented by two groups of people in parallel without knowledge, right? And so that shows that newcomers can propose startlingly good ideas and get immediate fast traction on them. So, for Lightning to work, it needed an opcode, but people saw that idea of Lightning had a lot of potential. So there was, enthusiasm to work out the details and get the opcodes done.
So there isn't.
So I don't think there is. I mean, I think the thing is that,
But there's maybe a certain hierarchy that exists.
I mean, there are people with skill sets that you want to somehow enthuse to pay attention, to review things. But, I think you still have to use some kind of common sense human interaction skills, right? So if you want somebody to review something, there's certain, look at how other people are doing things, copy other people, right? So, if you're not very good at sort of managing human interactions, find a co-author, find somebody else to help you champion it or navigate it. And I mean, I think ultimately, if you push too hard, it backfires. So I think that's a potential source of mistake as well.
And we've seen that again. It's like a historical lesson where people have tried to rush changes or push changes into Bitcoin that haven't had consensus, and it's kind of pushed some people away from Bitcoin. They've had the wrong time preference on upgrades.
Well, I mean, there have been some rage quits historically around the forks for sure. And, at the time of the fork drama, you were paid attention at that time and talking about it afterwards. I think people sort of, I think investors found the fact that it was hard to forcibly change Bitcoin to be a very bullish signal. You hear Saylor talking about that, that was the single most important thing. Another interesting thing you get if you talk to investors, Saylor and people like his, sort of investor mindset, about what features they would like for Bitcoin. Their primary feature is just don't break it, right? So they're actually not very interested in, opt-in micropayments or fancy things, right? Because they're like, well, how risky is that? Right? Status quo is good enough. Don't break it.
Yeah, well,
So I think covenants, the pitch for the investor is vaults are good for high value long-term storage.
and obviously for Saylor, he's in a different scenario though, where he holds so much Bitcoin that something like the spendability is not as interesting to him because his incentive model is based on the growth of hodlers, which, demand continues to increase means, his billions become more billions, etc. So and I would be cautious of. I completely agree with him. Just don't break it. But I would also be cautious to give too much weight to somebody whose incentive model's slightly different.
Well, yeah, you can see there are broadly two groups of. I mean, people use Bitcoin for many reasons. Some of them would be perfectly happy if it was a new gold ETF, even if it wasn't very bearer, just because of harder money. I think Saifedean, maybe in that camp. I think Hal Finney was talking about, layer 2 banks. So they were thinking like a hard base money. But, for a lot of people, what makes it exciting is that it's permissionless bearer money with a low barrier to entry. Smartphone, it's all an app, you're ready to go with no permission. And so for that to practically work, you need scalability solutions, you need payment solutions that work for people in emerging markets who don't have that much money. And so I think both are important because ultimately for the investor, they're investing in the adoption rate of something. And for there to be adoption, there needs to be payment capability.
Well, my actual use for Bitcoin is it's pretty much the same as it was day one. I buy it and I transfer it to a wallet. And sometimes I transfer a bit of back out and I sell it. That's pretty much it. My only advancements have been transferring some into a Lightning wallet, which I've had on my phone, I've used when I've been away, and moving to a multi-sig cold storage solution. So even if Bitcoin ossified right now, for me, it would still serve a great purpose for the rest of my life.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's true, that it's good enough in a way, but, with careful changes, I think it could be better and it can satisfy, different use cases. And of course, privacy is another one, fungibility, privacy.
Is there what's been done on, because I feel like we've covered CTV now. Where are we at with kind of privacy and fungibility? Any big changes being proposed? Anything you're interested in?
Well, I mean, I'm interested in privacy and fungibility. Is kind of where I came from pre-Bitcoin, was working on anonymous electronic cash protocols and things. And that's where confidential transactions came from. And so I, try to improve Bitcoin's privacy and realize that this is too complicated a change to expect to get into Bitcoin as a BIP in 2013. So changed focus to work on modularity so that you could have sidechains where you could do things like that. So that, maybe eventually that will reach a state of kind of safety and compactness and characteristics that it could actually get into Bitcoin. But there are incremental things happening for privacy. I think, the Taproot and Schnorr help a bit as well. And I think there are at times sort of network level things which are less consensus, more kind of network policy, privacy things. That unfortunately, there's not really any kind of major silver bullet technology that's reached maturity. I mean, certainly confidential transactions are interesting, candidate tech, the SNARK technology arc, and bulletproofs are interesting. And, the later versions of confidential transactions use bulletproofs, but those are still improving. And so it's probably some more years. So it's a sort of patience game, I guess, but there is a certain sort of safety and efficiency bar for things to go into Bitcoin.